Chapter 2573. That's little martial uncle's natal sword. The trip to Fusang City is unpredictable. What Mu Yen needs most now is to strengthen her combat strength. She concentrates her divine sense on the 7 absolute sword spirit and injects 100 rounds of divine power into it. A powerful sword energy breaks out of her chest and turns into 7 colored sword lights, hovering above the space. The 7 swords rotate quickly around Mu Yen, rising higher and higher. Finally, they converge in midair and turn into a crystal-clear long sword. Mu Yen closes her eyes and grabs the void with her right hand. The transparent long sword slowly shrinks into a small sword the size of a palm and falls into Mu Yan's palm. The moment the 7 absolute sword falls, Mu Yan's palm is cut open. Blood gushes out of her palm and is instantly swallowed by the 7 absolute sword. The small sword exudes an unparalleled powerful sword energy, and under the control of Mu Yan's divine sense, it slowly disappears. Mu Yen slowly opens her eyes and wipes the sweat from her forehead. She looks at the Tianmo Qin beside her with joy, and then at the crystal-clear 7 absolute sword in her hand. She can feel that the connection between herself and the 7 absolute sword has deepened. Now, the 7 absolute sword seems to be closely connected with the sword heart in her domain and her sea of consciousness. Moreover, the previous 7 absolute sword was transformed from the Tianmo Qin, or a part of it. But now, Mu Yen can clearly feel that the connection between the 7 absolute sword and the Tianmo Qin is very small. On the contrary, it is closely related to her, and their fates are connected. In Mu Yan's mind, a word that little martial uncle once said suddenly flashes: natal sword. A real sword cultivator must condense the sword heart and must have their own natal sword. Otherwise, they will never be able to comprehend the realm of unity of man and sword, and naturally, they will not be called a swordsman. Mu Yen can feel that her understanding of swordsmanship at this time has stepped into a new world. Since advancing to the nascent soul stage, Mu Yen felt that her cultivation of swordsmanship has stagnated. Even the blood-slaughtering sword formation of little martial uncle can't make her progress. She can't even see the direction of her efforts. But now, it's suddenly clear. It was like a thirsty person walking into a vast ocean. There were countless sword intents in front of her that she needed to comprehend, digest, and absorb. Mu Yen was ecstatic and extremely glad that she had chosen to upgrade the 7 sword spirits to 2 stars. Her guess was right. The 7 ultimate sword spirit did not enhance any of her skills. Instead, it directly tempered and improved her comprehension of the sword Tao. Even if she cultivated her spiritual power to be as deep as the sea and raised her cultivation to the crossing calamity stage, she still wouldn't be able to get such an improvement easily. Suddenly, Mu Yen remembers something. With a flip of her hand, a dark green translucent small sword appears in her palm. This was Luo Yunxiao's engagement gift for her. Mu Yen didn't know what kind of sword it was before. She only felt that after putting this sword in her space, her domain and sword heart's condensation speed became faster and faster. The strangest one was 7 brilliance. The things given by little martial uncle, 7 brilliance, had never taken a fancy to them. Even if she was allowed to put it in her space, she would definitely complain about it. But only this sword, from beginning to end, 7 brilliance never said a word of disdain, and even carefully did not touch it. In the past, Mu Yen didn't understand, but now she vaguely understood something. She raised her head, looked at 7 brilliance, and said slowly, "This is little martial uncle's natal flying sword? 7 brilliance, why didn't you tell me if you already knew?" Chapter 2574. Lost Population 1. Qi Huang turned his head away uneasily. But he still stiffened his neck and said, "What's the big deal? This gigolo has a lot of natal swords, but he only gave you such a broken one. Such a stingy guy, do you want me to brag for him?" Mu Yen was so angry that she wanted to laugh. Just how deep was Qi Huang's enmity towards little martial uncle? But hearing Qi Huang said that youngest martial uncle had a lot of natal swords, she finally felt relieved. But she still thought that when she saw youngest martial uncle next time, no matter what he said, she must return the small green jade sword. The so-called natal sword was closely related to the life and death of its master. Giving the natal sword to others was too weird and inappropriate no matter how she thought about it. Miss June. A man's respectful voice came from outside the space. For Division City, adjacent to Fusang City, is ahead. The man who spoke was specially sent by the Murong family to lead the way for Mu Yen and the others. As Feng Yu said before, Fusang City was very exclusive, and ordinary people could not even touch the gate to enter. Even if they found the pass token on Feng Yu, it could only allow one person to enter. But coincidentally, there was a servant from Fusang City in the Murong family named Wei Baolin. When he heard that Mu Yen and the others wanted to go to Fusang City, he volunteered to lead the way. According to Wei Baolin, the gate of Fusang City was strictly guarded, but the deacon guarding the city had obvious hobbies. It was just that he had a special liking for the spiritual food made by a chef in the Four Symbols City called the Taste Vegetarian Restaurant. As long as they brought the hot and freshest snacks from Perceptive Vegetarian Restaurant, with a few good words from Wei Baolin and some generous gifts, they would probably turn a blind eye and let them in. Mu Yen came out of the space, opened the door, and said with a faint smile, "Thank you, Steward Wei. We will rest in 4 Division City tonight." In this way, the spiritual food bought tomorrow would be the freshest. 4 Division City in the Western Land was a magical place in the entire Purple Cloud realm. Because in this place, there was no trading of magic treasures or medicinal pills, and battles between cultivators were absolutely not allowed. The most prosperous, and popular things here were spirit chefs, musicians, artists, and planters. In short, all the enjoyments and joys that have nothing to do with war and life can be found here. Yun Ruhan stored the airship in her storage dimension a few kilometers above 4 Division City. The group of 8 slowly landed on the ground and walked toward the peace-loving 4 Division City. Awoo-a-dash. Help. Suddenly, several hair-raising wolf howls accompanied by a woman's blood-curdling screams entered their ears. Wei Baolin's expression changed, and he exclaimed, "Not good, another blood wolf is eating people." After saying that, he soared into the sky and flew in the direction of the sound. Mu Yen and the others quickly follow. Not long after, the 7 of them saw a scene that made their scalps tingle. A dozen jackals were howling and gnawing on a woman. The woman's body was drenched in blood. Several pieces of flesh had been torn off her leg by the sharp teeth, revealing the eerie white bones. There was even a hole in her abdomen, and her intestines were gushing out along with blood. When Mu Yen and the others arrived, the woman was already on the verge of death and could not even make a sound. Wei Baolin roared angrily, and his long sword flew out. "Bastard, how dare you hurt people? Get out of here!" Chapter 2575. Missing Persons, 2. In the end, Wei Baolin is a nascent soul stage cultivator. Although his talent is average, it's more than enough to deal with these low-level blood wolves. In a short moment, he has beheaded more than a dozen blood wolves. The woman has already fainted in a pool of blood, losing consciousness. Mayan takes 2 steps forward, about to check on the woman's injuries. Wei Baolin promptly steps forward to stop her. "Miss June, you mustn't. This woman's body is a mess. How can your precious body be stained with this dirt?" He smiles somewhat cautiously. "This little one has some healing medicine on me. This little one will just feed it to her." Saying that, Wei Baolin promptly steps forward and stuffs the elixir in his hand into the woman's mouth. The Murong family is a prestigious family. As the steward of the Murong family, the elixirs that Wei Baolin has on him are naturally excellent. The wounds on the woman's body heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Mayan doesn't insist, because with a sweep of her divine sense, she can feel that the woman's vitality, which was originally rapidly losing, is slowly recovering. Moreover, there's a strong smell of blood here. Who knows, it might attract even more ferocious beasts. It's really not a suitable place for healing. Wei Baolin sees that Leng Yuma is about to step forward and carry the woman on her back. He promptly says, "How can Miss Leng do this kind of rough work?" Leng Yuma raises her brows. Although the woman is covered in cuts and bruises and bloodstains, one can tell that she's a beauty just by looking at her face. Wei Baolin shyly smiles and takes out a silver silk from his Qiankuan bag. The silk unfolds and steadily props the woman up on it. Wei Baolin's hand is held under the silk, not touching the woman's body in the slightest. Lung Yuma sees that he's such a gentleman and acts bravely for a just cause, and there's some appreciation in her eyes. The group soon arrives at 4 Division City. A checkpoint is set up at the gate. Anyone who wants to enter 4 Division City needs to pay an entrance fee of 10 high-grade crystals. Wei Baolin is very tactful. He takes out 100 high-grade crystals and hands them over to the gate guard. He also smiles and tells him to keep the change. However, when the crystals are handed over, the silver silk that he's holding up swings a little. It makes the woman lying on it tilt her head, and the beautiful face that was originally covered by her black hair is revealed. When the guards at the gate saw that face, their pupils constricted slightly. But he quickly took the crystal without batting an eyelid. The 7 people of the Xiao Yao sect, who were excitedly looking around the 4-symbol city, didn't notice this. After Mu Yen and the others have left, the guard immediately takes out a photographic talisman from his bosom and activates it. Soon, the figure of a woman appeared in the void. Below it were the words, "Reward of 100,000 high-grade crystal stones," and that woman's face was clearly exactly the same as the woman Mu Yen and the others had saved from the blood wolf's mouth. Mu Yen checks the woman's pulse and carefully examines her body. She can't help but frown. "Sixth senior sister, what's wrong? Does this girl have any other injuries?" "No." Mayan hesitantly shakes her head. "Blood wolf only left a superficial wound. I'm just curious. This woman's body is too weak. It's like, they were like those mortals who had been starving for a few days without food. They were so weak that they could barely survive." However, this woman's cultivation was clearly not low. She had already reached the golden core stage. How could a golden core stage cultivator starve herself to death? Even if she didn't eat, as long as she had spiritual power to supplement her body, it's reasonable to say that she wouldn't be hungry. Just as she was thinking, the woman's eyelashes suddenly trembled, and she abruptly opened her eyes. Chapter 2576. Lost Person 3. Asking for tickets. Just as she's thinking, the woman's eyelashes suddenly tremble and she snaps her eyes open. That pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes, with distinct black and white, is condensed with deep fear. Her mouth opens wide and she lets out a hoarsely cry. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." Luo Yu hurriedly says, "We're not bad people, you've already been saved. We killed those blood wolves." The woman slowly turns her eyes, blankly and nervously looking at the furnishings in the room. Slowly, the fear in her eyes fades away, and her line of sight finally focuses on Mayan and the others. "It's you who saved me?" The woman's voice is a little hoarse and not smooth, as if she hasn't spoken for a long time, so her words have become sluggish. But it's only for a short moment before her words return to fluency. "Thank you." Luo Yu hugs the back of the chair, gently rocking it as she smiles. "What's your name? Where did you come from? How did you get targeted by the blood wolves outside of 4 Division City? I see that your cultivation isn't bad. Although those blood wolves are powerful, they shouldn't have been that miserable. What happened to you before? Why do you have so much nonsense to say?" Yun Ruhan pats Luo Yu's head, smiling gently. "Miss, don't mind it, you should rest well. We'll talk about the rest after you've recovered." Seeing that the woman's expression is still a little vigilant, she explains, "We came from the eastern continent of Ziyunjie to 4 Division City to buy spirit food. We accidentally saw you being attacked by the blood wolves, so we rescued you and brought you to 4 Division City." The woman's eyes have been lowered, making it impossible to see her expression. She finally raises her head and says softly, "My name is Enchantress. Could you please give me..." Before she can finish speaking, there's a knock on the door. Wei Baolin says from outside the room, "Miss June, there's someone asking to see you, saying that he's a relative of the girl we saved." As soon as he says that, the door has already been impatiently knocked open. A man rushes in from the outside, his gaze wandering around the room. When he sees Enchantress sitting on the bed, he immediately rushes over excitedly and takes her into his arms. "I finally found you." The man's voice was hoarse. His hands that were holding the woman were sometimes light and sometimes heavy. They were trembling as if he was holding a treasure that he had lost and found. Lonexon, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. How could I have lost you? You must have suffered a lot during this period of time, right? Enchantress's body was held in the man's arms. At first, she was still stiff. In the end, she couldn't help but cry. She wrapped her hands around the man's back and kept hitting him. I'm sorry, Lonexon. I came too late. It's all my fault. But I promise you, it won't happen again. I'll protect you well and never let you leave my side again. The people of the Xiaoyao sect were stunned by this dramatic scene. Mu Yan looks at Wei Baolin. Wei Baolin quickly steps forward and takes out a piece of paper and a talisman from his bosom. He respectfully hands them over to Mu Yan. There was a portrait of a woman drawn on the paper. It was extremely lifelike, slender and moving. It was Enchantress. This is a missing person notice. Wei Baolin, before bringing her here, this little one also went to Xixiang City to inquire. This man's name is Gu Feiping. He's the head of the Gu family, a second-rate aristocratic family in Fusang City. More than a month ago, his wife Enchantress disappeared outside Fusang City. It's said that she was kidnapped. Tomorrow's schedule is a bit busy. I might not have time to write when I get home. Let me inform everyone in advance that tomorrow's update might be delayed. Chapter 2577. Wei Baolin, Mr. Gu ordered people to seal off all the surrounding mountains and put up and distributed thousands of missing person notices in the surrounding towns, but we didn't find any trace. I didn't expect that Madame Gu would be saved by us in the end. When we brought Madame Gu into the city, someone probably saw Madame Ji's face, so they recognized her and informed Mr. Gu. Wei Baolin was instructing them. Gu Feiping suddenly shouted in panic, Lonexon, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Everyone quickly turned around and saw that Enchantress had fainted in Gu Feiping's arms with a pale face. Mu Yan hurriedly steps forward to check her pulse, and lightly says, Don't worry, she's just too weak, and her mood fluctuates greatly, that's why she fainted. Just let her rest for a while and feed her some mild spirit food. In fact, it was not an exaggeration to say that Enchantress fainted from hunger. Mu Yan actually finds it a little strange. Enchantress's cultivation is at gold core stage, and there's no sign of the spiritual power within her body being sealed. How could she have starved herself to such a miserable state? Mayan's line of sight falls on Enchantress's face. That peacefully sleeping face was still filled with fear and pain. A sparkling teardrop rolled down from the corner of her eye. Gu Feiping said that Enchantress was kidnapped and sold? What kind of person could kidnap and sell a golden core cultivator, torturing her to such a weak state and making her so terrified and uneasy? How did Enchantress escape? Gu Feiping heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that Enchantress was fine. He immediately called for his subordinates to carefully move the unconscious Enchantress into the spaceship. Only then does he turn to Mayan and the others, bowing deeply, Thank you all for saving my wife's life. This insignificant gift is not enough to show my respect. I hope that everyone will not dislike it. As he said this, he raised his hand and a servant immediately came forward with the Qianquan box and respectfully presented it to Mu Yan. Mu Yan, however, chuckles and doesn't take it. It's nothing much, no need to be polite. Moreover, strictly speaking, it was Mr. Wei who saved your wife. Wei Baolin waved his hands. I don't deserve it. I am originally from Fusang City and have long heard that old Master Gu is famous for being infatuated in the city and treats his wife like a treasure. I have unintentionally helped Madame Gu with a small favor. It is really a blessing of 3 lifetimes. When Gu Feiping heard that Wei Baolin was also from Fusang City, his eyes immediately lit up and he struck up a conversation with him. When he heard that Mu Yan and the others wanted to visit Fusang City, he quickly said, If you don't mind, let me bring you into the city. Take it as repayment for saving my wife's life. Wei Baolin moves closer to Mu Yan and lowers his voice. Miss June, that's great. I was still worried about how to conceal your and Miss Lung's womanly aura. This was because it was easy for men to enter Fusang City, but it was not easy for women to enter. Now that we can follow Mr. Gu, we don't have to worry about not being able to enter Fusang City. Very soon, the spaceship set off towards Fusang City. Along the way, Gu Feiping took good care of Elanxin and even personally fed her soup and medicine. When Elanxin woke up and saw Gu Feiping, she was no longer frightened and tense. Instead, she revealed a happy and sweet smile. Seeing this scene, everyone from the Xiaoyao sect breathed a sigh of relief. Lung Yuma, isn't it said that the men of Fusang City treat women as objects and trample and humiliate them at will? I didn't expect this Gu Feiping to be an exception. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 2578. Wei Baolin smiled. I heard in Fusang City that the men of the Gu family are different in Fusang City. They are infatuated with every wife. The status of women in Fusang City is very low. It is their greatest fortune to be able to marry a man of the Gu family. There are also many people who laugh at the men of the Gu family for being bullied by women. But they still do what they want. Luo Yu looked at Gu Feiping's meticulous care for Elan and sighed. I was suspicious of Mr. Gu before and felt that those who come from Fusang City are not good people. Now it seems that I was wrong about him. In less than half a day, the flying ship arrived at Fusang City. Before landing, Gu Feiping found 2 sets of men's clothing and handed them to Mu Yen and Leng Yuma. He said apologetically, the women in Fusang City do not have a good life. Miss June and Miss Ling, after you enter the city, you must not leave my escort team. In fact, there are magic treasures at the city gate that can detect the genders and bones of cultivators. It is useless even if you disguise as a man. But disguising as a man can avoid some trouble in the city. I can only inconvenience the 2 of you. Mu Yen smiled. Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Gu. But she did not take the clothes from Gu Feiping. Instead, she took out 2 sets from the space and handed one to Leng Yuma. Gu Feiping did not get angry and kept the clothes with a smile. As Gu Feiping said, the security of Fusang City was extremely strict. Moreover, before she got close, Mu Yen couldn't see where the entrance door was from a distance. When the flying ship landed, Gu Feiping raised his right hand. An exquisite bracelet on his wrist shone faintly. Everyone's eyes suddenly brightened. A towering iron gate appeared in front of them. The moment he saw this iron gate, Chu Moli's pupils shrank. Third senior brother, what's wrong? Mu Yen noticed Chu Moli's strange expression and quickly asked. Her third senior brother had always been gentle and gentle. He did not show off much. He did not have any hobbies and did not want to be in the limelight. There were very few things in this world that could make him show such an expression. Chu Moli slowly shook his head and said softly, there should be an extremely powerful formation in Fusang City. But I cannot see through what it is and what its purpose is. Mu Yen frowned. At this moment, a vortex-like circle of light appeared below the huge iron gate. More than a dozen golden core stage guards came out in a line. When they saw Gu Feiping clearly, they immediately bowed and said, Mr. Gu, you're back? The leader's wary gaze landed on Yun Ruhan's group, and he frowned. These people are? Gu Feiping hurriedly said, these people are my benefactors and have no ill intentions towards Fusang City. They will leave after a few days of sightseeing. The guard's expression relaxed a little, but he still stared at the 7 people, sizing them up. After a while, he smiled and said, since Mr. Gu is the guarantor, then please come in. The 8 of them followed Gu Feiping through the whirlpool, which was equivalent to passing through the towering iron gate. Soon, the sights and noises of the city could be seen. Overall, Fusang City was not much different from the other cities in the Purple Cloud realm. The biggest difference was probably the women here. It was a scorching summer day. Although Mayan's usual attire isn't too revealing, it's still cool and comfortable. However, the women of Fusang City all used thick black cloth to wrap themselves up tightly. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2579. Women are only their possessions. 1. The black cloth rolls up to their necks, as if they could be strangled to death at any time. Moreover, when everyone walks, they lower their eyes, blindly following behind the man. Some of the women have obvious injuries on their bodies, their faces pale, their figures thin and weak. They carry heavy thorns on their backs, and with every step they take, the thorns on the thorns pierce into their flesh, making their faces twist in pain, cold sweat pouring out, but they don't even dare to make a sound. Wei Baolin explains to Mayan and the others in a low voice, these women who carry the black iron thorn have all made mistakes. Some don't do things quickly, some contradict their husbands or fathers. In short, once they make a mistake, they have to carry the black iron thorn for a whole day. If they cry out during this period, or let the thorns of the black iron thorn cut their skin and leave a wound, the punishment will be 100 times heavier than this. Mayan and the others have cold and unsightly expressions. Wei Baolin sighs softly, the atmosphere in Fusang City is like this, you can't treat women as people. Those men who have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex can't stay any longer and leave. Only Master Ji's family background is strong, so he can spoil his wife so unscrupulously. Just as Wei Baolin had said, compared to those women who were wrapped up tightly and had their spines bent, Enchantress, who is carefully protected by Gu Feiping's arm around her waist, looks so out of place, so happy. But strangely, these women occasionally pass by Enchantress and catch a glimpse of her nestled in Gu Feiping's arms. But there's no trace of envy or jealousy, only deathly stillness and numbness. In Fusang City, this is obviously the most common scene. The faces of the 7 people of the Xiaoyao school become more and more unsightly. Before the Deer Cry banquet, they already had a bad impression of Fusang City. Seeing this scene now, they feel even more disgusted. They don't know what the men of Fusang City are so high and mighty about. It's as if they weren't born from a woman's belly. Ooh. At this time, a woman carrying the black iron thorn staggers because she's too weak and falls towards Luo Yu. Luo Yu subconsciously reaches out to support her. Be careful. The woman's body was stabilized by him, but her face was filled with terror. She flung Luo Yu aside and threw herself in front of a man as if she had gone mad. She cried hoarsely, I'm sorry. Sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I won't do it again. I won't do it again. Luo Yu was confused. What's going on? The man looked down at the crying woman, his eyes flashing with disgust. He suddenly threw out a dagger. You know what to do. The woman looked at the dagger with fear and despair in her eyes. But she did not hesitate. She quickly picked up the dagger and slashed at her own arm. Blood splattered everywhere. 2 drops even landed on Luo Yu's face. He wiped his face in a daze, and then chopped off the woman who had lost an arm in the blink of an eye and almost fainted from the pain. Are you kidding me? Luo Yu suddenly regained her senses and was about to charge towards the man. However, Wei Baolin pulled him back. Young Master Lan, calm down. This is the rule of Fusang City. Any married woman is the property of a man. Once this property is touched by someone else, it means it's dirty and impure. The man has the right to dispose of her like trash. Chapter 2580. A woman is just their possession, too. Asking for tickets, compared to being dealt with, losing an arm is already the best ending. Fuck the best possible ending. Luo Yu is about to go mad. Just because I helped her, she's going to lose an arm? The man sneers at Luo Yu, a foreigner? Do you know the rules of living in Fusang City? So it's young Master Higashino Yamada. Gu Feiping comes forward with Enchantress in his arms, smiling gently and elegantly. These people are my Gu family's guests. They didn't know the rules of Fusang City and offended you. I hope young Master Higashino will give us some face and not bother with them. Higashino Yamada's gaze sweeps over Gu Feiping and falls on Enchantress. He smiles meaningfully. Since it's Gu family's guest, of course, I have to give this face. After a pause, he slowly says, this year's 100-flower feast will be held tomorrow night. I don't know if Gu family's master will participate in this 100-flower feast. Gu Feiping nods and says, such a grand event, of course I have to participate. Enchantress, who is held by the waist by him, trembles slightly. After exchanging greetings, Higashino Yamada waves his hand. Immediately, a servant steps forward and picks up the unconscious woman in a pool of blood like a sack. When passing by several people, Higashino Yamada's gaze inadvertently sweeps over Mayan. His eyes suddenly burst with a breathtaking and fiery light, and he subconsciously steps forward to grab her chin. Mayan's eyes are slightly cold, and the 7 absolute swords are stirring in her palm. However, before Higashino Yamada can approach, Goof vaping blocks in front of him. Young Master Higashino, as I said, these are my guests. Higashino Yamada licks his lips, his voice hoarse. This is a woman, and a stunningly beautiful one at that. In Fusang City, all disguises are ineffective. Do you think that if you disguise as a man, I won't be able to see through it? Goof vaping, tell me, what price do you want for you to transfer this woman to me? Anger faintly condenses in Goof vaping's eyes. Young Master Higashino, if you are rude to my guests again, don't blame me for being impolite. Higashino Yamada's eyes are full of unwillingness, but he finally chuckles. Master Higashino, don't forget the 100-flower feast tomorrow night. When Higashino Yamada leaves, Goof vaping is relieved. He slightly shook his head and sighed. The Higashino clan is one of the 3 great aristocratic families in Fusang City. They have always been arrogant. It's just that the death of their heir, Higashino Cheng, caused them to keep a low profile for a period of time due to the younger generation fighting for the right of inheritance. Last month, this Higashino Yamada emerged from the competition and became the new heir of the Higashino family. Now that he's in the limelight, it's better for you not to provoke him. Yun nodding Higashino. With Higashino, and with, and you. That with Hua Fu is with. Oh, it's a grand event held once every 3 years in Fusang City. Goof vaping smiled and said helplessly, it is only on this day that the women of Fusang City are allowed to wear beautiful clothes and exquisite jewelry. They are led by their fathers, brothers, or husbands to appear at banquets. No matter if they sing, dance, play with swords, or talk to men, they are not prohibited. Our Goof family has never been interested in the 100-flower banquet, so we don't participate. However, Lan Xen had a sudden impulse and wanted to experience it for herself. So, I will bring Lan Xin to the banquet tomorrow night. Stay up late made it out, but I was a little late. I apologize. Chapter 2581. Lan Xin raised her head to look at Goof vaping, revealing a shy and sweet smile. She snuggled into Goof vaping's arms and said softly, "Thank you, my husband." Goof vaping chuckled, "There's no need to thank me between us. As long as it's what you want, I will naturally satisfy it." Lung Yuma's heart moved and she suddenly said, "In other words, all the women in Fusang City will participate in the 100-flower banquet tomorrow?" Goof vaping laughed, "Of course not. Only those men of noble status can bring female companions to participate, and they can only bring 3 at most. However, if you say that all the noble ladies in Fusang City will participate, it's not wrong." Lung Yuma pursed her lips and suddenly gritted her teeth. "Master Go, I want to participate in the 100-flower banquet. Can you take me with you?" Goof vaping was stunned. Before he said anything, Lan Xin already smiled and said, "Great. I was worried that it would be boring to go to the banquet alone. If Miss Lung and Miss June can accompany me, it couldn't be better." Saying that, she shook Goof vaping's hand and said tenderly, "My husband, they are my saviors. Now that I have a request, can you agree to them?" Goof vaping smiled helplessly, "Okay, I promise you." Lung Yuma, "I'll go alone." Before she finished speaking, Mu Yen pressed her shoulder. "Fourth sister, I also want to see the 100-flower banquet. Don't think of leaving me behind." Lung Yuma's heart was slightly warm. She knew that Mu Yen was worried about her, so she offered to go together. Luo Yu puffed her cheeks and said unhappily, "Only 4th sister and 6th sister can go? I also want to go and see." Goof vaping said apologetically, "I'm sorry. The 100-flower banquet stipulates that only men of Fusang City can participate. Since you are guests of my Goof family, I will definitely arrange for people to entertain you." Mu Yen and the others were quickly brought to a small courtyard. The furnishings in the courtyard were elegant and comfortable. Every little detail was carefully considered, making people feel at home. Chu Moli took a look at the layout of the courtyard and chuckled softly. This patriarch Go is quite an interesting person. He knew that they were wary of Fusang City, so he arranged for them to stay in a courtyard with 4 spacious bedrooms. Furthermore, the bedrooms were connected in a ring. If something were to happen in one of the bedrooms, the slightest noise would alert the people in the other rooms. It could be said that in terms of safety, it gave them a reassurance. Luo Yu shook her head and said, I always feel that the people in Fusang City are very strange. The men are scum who are worse than beasts, and the women are like lifeless puppets controlled by others. Only this Gu family head is different from others. Even in such an environment, he is still able to dote on his wife. What a good man. The others nodded as well. As he spoke, Yi Lanxin walked into the courtyard with a universe box in her hand. Seeing them, she revealed a gentle smile and looked at Mu Yen and Leng Yuma. Miss June, Miss Leng, these are the accessories for you to participate in the 100-flower banquet? Seeing the doubtful expressions on the two's faces, Yi Lanxin quickly said, the 2 misses might not know, but the people who participate in the 100-flower banquet must have at least 1 piece of jewelry with Fusang City's unique talisman array. It's like a nameplate for admission. Even if Mr. Yun and you don't participate in the 100-flower banquet, in order to move around Fusang City conveniently, it's best to wear some. That way, there won't be any guards checking your identity at any time. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2582. Mayan takes a look inside the Qiankuan box and sees that there are 2 phoenix hairpins, 2 pairs of earrings, 2 pairs of bracelets, as well as some fragmented hairpins, necklaces, and so on. Apart from the women's jewelry for her and Leng Yuma, there are also several Qiankuan boxes that contain men's hairpins, speed jade pendants, jade rings, sachets, and so on. Mayan sweeps them with her divine sense, and sure enough, she finds traces of faint runes flowing on them. She looks at Chu Moli. Chu Moli is holding a jade ring and gently fiddling with it. Meeting Mayan's gaze, he gently shakes his head. The arrays on these jewelry are indeed only used for identification, and there's no danger. Seeing that Chu Moli is wearing a jade ring, Luo Yu and Ling Yuxing immediately go over with a smile and pick their own jewelry. Yun Ruhan picks a sword tassel. Qin Jiao picks a silver bracelet. Luo Yu and Ling Yuxing both pick a jade pendant. Leng Yuma steps forward and glances at the Qiankuan box. Finally, she takes out the most inconspicuous silver bracelet and puts it on. Apart from Mayan, everyone else in the room chooses jewelry. Yi Lanxin holds the Qiankuan box and walks up to her. Looking at the girl's flawless appearance, a deep and shallow light flashes through her eyes. Miss June, I wonder which one would you like to choose? Mayan's gaze sweeps over the Qiankuan box, and finally stops on the same silver bracelet as Leng Yuma's. She knows that fourth sister's purpose is to go to the 100-flower banquet to find someone. And she doesn't want to attract anyone's attention. In the Qiankuan box, apart from the silver bracelet, the other jewelry is too dazzling. Mayan raises her hand and grabs the silver bracelet in the Qiankuan box. However, just as she is about to touch the bracelet, she withdraws her hand. Yi Lanxin's hand, which is holding the box, trembles imperceptibly. Mayan chuckles, Madam Go, just leave the Qiankuan box here. I'll pick the jewelry myself. Yi Lanxin is still smiling gently. She puts down the Qiankuan box and leaves. Junior sister, what's wrong? Chu Moli says, do you think there's a problem with these jewelry? Mayan frowns, no, there's no problem, there was a strange feeling. Just now, when she was looking at the Qiankuan box, there seemed to be a sudden urge and desire in her heart, urging her to immediately pick up one of the jewelry, especially the bracelet. This feeling disappeared in a flash and was not intense. Ordinary people might not even notice this change in their state of mind. But Mayan has lived 2 lifetimes and is used to being cautious. She doesn't want to ignore this intuition. Leng Yuma took off the bracelet and put it back on. She had a puzzled look on her face. There really doesn't seem to be a problem. Luo Yu also came over and tried the rest of the jewelry in the Cosmos box. Other than the faint runes that appeared when spiritual energy was poured in, there were no other abnormalities. Wei Baolin said, Although this lowly one has never participated in the 100-flower feast, I have indeed heard that those who participate in the 100-flower feast must have a special array mark on their body in order to be allowed to enter. Also, the stronger the symbol, the more popular the girl will be in the 100-flower banquet. Even Yun Ruhan said, "Junior sister, aren't you being too careful?" However, in this Fusang city, no matter how careful one is, it is still necessary. At this time, Mayan also felt that she was being too paranoid. And even if there was a problem with the jewelry, so what? She has to accompany Leng Yuma to participate in the 100-flower feast. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2583. Thinking of this, Mu Yen didn't hesitate anymore. She picked up the silver bracelet and put it on her wrist. The next day, Mu Yen woke up to the sound of knocking on the door. "Miss June, Miss Leng, the 100-flower banquet is about to begin. Are you ready?" Mu Yen suddenly woke up. She opened the door and saw the afterglow of the setting sun outside. Her heart suddenly shook. What time is it now? Standing outside the door was a servant of the Gu family. Hearing this, he quickly replied, reporting to Miss June, "It's already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The 100-flower banquet will begin in an hour. Madam waited for you for a long time, so she sent this lowly one to inform you." Leng Yuma also woke up at this time. At first, she was still a little confused. When she found out that the sun had already set, she was immediately shocked. Mu Yen frowned. "Where are my fellow apprentices?" The servant of the Gu family, young Master Yun, and the others came to call the two young ladies early in the morning. At that time, the two young ladies were sleeping soundly, so young Master Yun and the others went to Fusang City first. He also asked this lowly one to wait for the two young ladies to wake up and inform you. Mu Yen took a deep breath and slowly said, "Go and tell Madame Gu that my senior sister and I will be there soon." After the servant left, Mu Yan's face sank. Her fingers gently rubbed the silver bracelet on her wrist. "Leng Yuma, little junior sister, what's wrong? Is there something wrong?" "What's wrong?" "No, it should be said that everything is wrong." Mu Yen looked up at Leng Yuma and slowly said, "Last night, before I went to bed, I took off this bracelet. But now, it's on my hand, and I can't take it off again." Leng Yuma suddenly widened her eyes. When she came back to her senses, she immediately reached out to take off the silver bracelet. But she found that the bracelet seemed to have grown on her hand, and she couldn't take it off at all. Leng Yuma gritted her teeth and said, "Did the Gu family plot against us? Damn it, this old lady will go and settle the score with them now." However, before she could rush out, she was pulled back by Mu Yen. "Do you really believe that big senior brother and the others left us and went to Fusang City? Moreover, they didn't come back before the 100-flower banquet began?" Leng Yuma was surprised. "You mean big senior brother and the others are in danger?" Mu Yen closes her eyes and slowly exhales. "I don't know. But I know we can't act rashly now." Leng Yuma revealed a look of guilt. Mu Yen reaches out and gently hugs her. "Fourth senior sister, you must believe in eldest senior brother and the others. None of us, the Xiaoyao 7, can be easily schemed against and harmed by anyone." Leng Yuma slowly nodded and hugged Mu Yen back. "Miss June, Miss Leng, you're finally here." Upon hearing the footsteps, Gu Feiping immediately stood up and walked over. His gaze swept over the silver bracelets on the two of them, and the corners of his mouth curled up without a trace. Elanxin also walked forward with a smile. She sized up Mu Yen and Leng Yuma's simple clothes, and said softly, "Participating in the 100-flower banquet, the clothes on your bodies are too simple and elegant. Someone bring the clothes to the two ladies." Soon, a servant from the Gu family brought the dress up. Leng Yuma fiercely swung her hand and pushed away the person who came forward to take off her clothes. She stepped forward and grabbed Elanxin's collar, and slapped her hard. "We saved your life from the blood wolf's mouth, and this is how you repay us?" Elanxin's face instantly swelled up. Hearing that, she didn't feel ashamed or angry, but instead revealed a mocking and desolate smile. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 2584. Welcome to Fusang Hell 4. asking for tickets, but Enchantress's voice is still gentle. I don't understand what Miss Leng is talking about. I'm kind enough to give you clothes and jewelry. Is that wrong? Speak. Where are my brothers? Leng Yuma is so angry that she raises her hand to give Enchantress another slap. However, at this moment, her body suddenly twitches violently. The spiritual power that was gathered in her palm suddenly collapses, and her whole body falls to the ground, letting out a painful groan. Fourth senior sister. Mu Yen rushes over to help Leng Yuma up. Using her divine sense, she finds that Leng Yuma's body is safe and sound. Whether it's her spiritual power or her sea of consciousness, there is no abnormality. But Leng Yuma is in so much pain. Mu Yen grits her teeth, her eyes are cold. She knows that this time, they have encountered a great crisis. Gu Feiping slowly walked forward, lowering his head to look down at them, that gentle smile on his gentle and refined face. Miss June, my Gu residence is lacking a new madam. I wonder if you would be willing to marry me. At this moment, Gu Feiping's burning and greedy eyes are no longer concealed, unscrupulously sweeping over Mu Yan's face and body inch by inch. It's as if he knows that the prey that he has carefully trapped has finally fallen into his hands and can no longer escape. And his disguise can finally be taken off. Hearing this, Enchantress's expression is numb, but her body can't help but tremble. Mu Yen sneers. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in marrying a beast. Gu Feiping's eyes sink. But soon he shows a helpless smile. Women who have just come from the outside are usually wild and hard to tame. They don't know how to obediently serve men, and this can't be helped. But Miss June, this is the last chance I'm giving you. You didn't grasp it yourself, so you can't blame me for what happens next. After saying that, Gu Feiping waves his hand. Let's go. Follow me to the 100-flower banquets. Go to your mother's 100-flower banquet. Leng Yuma's curses stop abruptly, because she finds that her body is standing up uncontrollably. Her face shows a proper and gentle smile, and she keeps up with Gu Feiping's pace. Mu Yen and Enchantress have the same reaction as her. This was the first time Mu Yen had felt this strange and invisible power. Her heart was in turmoil, but she couldn't help but smile. 7 brilliants? Chihuang? Chiu? Little chick. Mayan calls out to the 3 little ones in the space over and over again, but finds that she has completely lost contact with the Tian Mo Chin. He lowered his eyes and looked at the silver bracelet in his hand. What exactly was this? Just then she heard Enchantress, who was walking past her, let out a low chuckle. There seemed to be an indistinct murmur in her ears. Welcome to Japan Hell. By the time they reach the carriage, Mayan's mood has already stabilized. That was because she discovered that this kind of control over her body was not something that she could have at all times. Only when Gu Feiping gave the order did his body sink into a shackle that he could not resist. Mayan reached out and gently shook hands with Leng Yuma, revealing a smile towards her. There was no conversation between the two, but there seemed to be a silent message being passed between them. No matter what difficulties and obstacles there are in front of us, mountains of knives and seas of fire, we, the Xiaoyao 7, will advance and retreat together. The rims of Leng Yuma's eyes suddenly became moist, and then the confusion and guilt in her eyes dissipated. Sleep good night. Chapter 2585. Try to cut off this hand. 1. Leng Yuma's eyes suddenly became wet, and then the only confusion and guilt in her eyes dissipated. It turned into an indomitable perseverance. Fusang City was divided into 4 districts: North, South, East, and West. As a grand event held once every 3 years in Fusang City, the 100-flower banquet would be held in the worry-free hall in the center of the 4 districts. At this time, the 100-flower banquet was already filled with singing and dancing. The women of Fusang City, who were usually tightly wrapped in black cloth, were now wearing beautiful clothes, showing gentle and happy smiles. However, as long as one looked closely at their eyes, one could see the deathly stillness or fear in their eyes. Most of the women gathered in the center of the hall. Some were playing the guqin, some were dancing with swords, and some were singing and dancing. The whole hall was filled with the sound of stringed instruments, fragrant clothes, and dancing pavilions. It was a scene like a fairyland, and the men of Fusang City were sitting around the hall. While drinking, they looked at the performing women and scrupulously. The expression on his face was one of arrogance and nonchalance, as if he was looking at a prey, a slave, or an object. At this moment, a servant shouted at the entrance of the hall. "The master of the Gu family is here." The Gu family was also a first-class family in Fusang City. But which man who could appear in the 100-flower banquet was not a noble family in Fusang City? Therefore, these men did not show any strange expressions. However, such calmness only lasted for a moment. As Gu Faping took his seat, a light and shadow flashed in the center of the hall, and 3 women appeared. Seeing these 3 people, the men present suddenly sat up straight. Not to mention that Enchantress was a rare woman with a gentle temperament. Even Leng Yuma, who was careless and dressed in androgynous clothes, had a heroic and delicate face. Her waterfall-like black hair was tied into a ponytail behind her head, and her red clothes fluttered gently. It was hard to tell whether she was a man or a woman, but she gave people a different kind of beauty and desire. They were eager to conquer, eager to hunt, eager to make the unruly girl reveal the charming appearance of a little girl, and bow at their feet. But what made the men present the most excited and even couldn't help but stand up? It was the peerlessly beautiful girl dressed in white. At the 100-flower banquet, there were obviously all kinds of beauties, all kinds of beautiful women. But when this young girl appeared, the other girls seemed to have become decorations, and they instantly became dim and lusterless. Gulp. Someone couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. How many years has it been since the 100-flower feast had such a stunning beauty? Patriarch Gu, you're actually willing to bring such a rare beauty to the 100-flower banquet to trade. You're truly generous. Master Gu was reluctant to bring Enchantress to the 100-flower banquet to trade a few years ago. We even thought that you really had deep feelings for that woman. Haha, I didn't expect to bring out 3 top-grade items at once. Family head Gu, tell me, what price do you want for these 3 women to trade with you? Higashino Yamada's face was flushed with excitement. His eyes were like those of a hungry wolf, wishing he could immediately pounce on his prey and capture it. Gu family head, this young master wants this woman in white. Just tell me what you want. As he spoke, he glared at the people around him. I'm warning you, it doesn't matter if it's other women, but don't even think about fighting with me for this one. The male cultivators present all curled their lips, revealing an eager expression. At the 100-flower banquet, it had always been a voluntary and fair trade. Whoever could afford the price, the prey naturally belonged to that person. Chapter 2586. Try to cut off this hand. 2. Little junior sister, what is this 100-flower feast? Leng Yuma stood beside Mu Yen and gritted her teeth. Although she used a question, she already had a guess in her heart. Before Mu Yen could answer, she heard Enchantress chuckle and interrupt, shouldn't you be very clear? The 100-flower feast is a trade fair. Mu Yen and Leng Yuma both turned to look at her. Enchantress slowly raised her chin. Her eyes were filled with ridicule, sneer, and even more so, deep hatred, and we are the goods of the trade. Very soon, you will become the property of the men in Fusang City. You will be trained, abused, tortured, and domesticated until one day, all your willpower will be exhausted, so all your hopes will be destroyed. In the end, even death will become a demand. At that time, you will be qualified women of Fusang City. Mu Yen looked at her quietly and suddenly said, You hate us? Yes, I hate you. Enchantress's face was completely distorted because of her question, How can I not hate you? If it weren't for you, even if I couldn't escape, I would have died in the mouth of a wolf. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been caught back to this hell, and I wouldn't have been able to beg for death. Ha! Enchantress laughed hysterically. Her expression looked wild and ferocious, but the sorrow and despair in her eyes couldn't be hidden. Since you sent me back to this hell, then don't blame me for dragging you down with me forever. When you become the playthings of the men of Fusang City, you will know how much I hate you. I can't wait to consign you to eternal damnation. Mu Yen and Leng Yuma were silent for a moment. Even Leng Yuma, who was so angry that she wanted to kill Elanxin, could no longer raise the slightest bit of hatred. Because even Elanxin, who was crazy at the moment and wanted to drag them to hell, was very clear. The people who should be cut into pieces were not them, but the men of Fusang City who were worse than pigs and dogs. Mu Yen suddenly raised her hand that was wearing the silver bracelet and gently shook it. What is this? The ferociousness and hatred on Elanxin's face slowly disappeared, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. In Fusang City, this thing specially used to control women is called heart-locking buckle. It sounds beautiful and moving, doesn't it? But in fact, as long as a woman wears the heart-locking buckle, she is like a dog with a collar and can only obediently listen to the man's orders. Mu Yan's heart is moved. She suddenly remembered that Murong Shui had also been put on a bracelet by a member of the Shui family. She'd been powerless to resist. In the end, she cut off her hand. As soon as the bracelets left Murong Shui's body, they shattered on their own, transforming into pieces of scrap metal devoid of spiritual energy. Feng Yu had mentioned this bracelet when she was tortured by floating like a dream. This bracelet was precisely the clue she gave Shui Minglang. She had exchanged it for a large sum of money in an underground market in the Western Continent's 4-division city. Feng Yu called the bracelet the spirit-locking buckle. There was only one word difference between it and the heart-locking buckle. Leng Yuma obviously thought of this as well. She immediately said eagerly, "Junior sister, I'll cut off this hand to try." Mu Yen said thoughtfully, "It's not a bad idea." Elanxin was startled because the two of them were talking about chopping off a hand as if it was the most common thing to talk about eating and sleeping. Chapter 2587. Kneel and call me master, 1. But soon Elanxin sneered, "Don't you know that a woman who wears the heart-locking buckle doesn't even have the right to harm herself if the master doesn't allow it? If you want to cut off your own hand, you have to see if they are willing to give you this chance." These words made Mu Yen and Leng Yuma frown. Obviously, the power of the spirit-locking buckle was far inferior to the heart-locking buckle. If it was so easy to escape from the devil's claws, the women of Fusang City wouldn't be unable to even seek death. The situation had fallen into an impasse that could not be resolved. Mu Yan's gaze swept over the men of Fusang City sitting at the side. Among these people, the highest cultivation was only at the peak of the nascent soul stage. More than half of them were fat and had oily hair. They hadn't even reached the 5th stage of the golden core stage. Moreover, the cultivation of these people was obviously built up with elixirs. As for the women in the hall, not to mention that every single one of them was extremely beautiful. Several of them had reached the nascent soul stage. Mu Yen even saw a beautiful female cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul stage. Such an outstanding woman was trapped to death here because of the selfish desires of the beasts of Fusang City. If it wasn't for the heart-locking buckle, how could the useless men of Fusang City have the ability to ruin these outstanding women? At this time, most of the women at the 100-flower banquet looked numb and sluggish. What kind of torture did she go through to make herself completely give up hope, leaving only hellish despair? Mu Yan's hand tightly clenched the silver bracelet on her wrist, and a bone-chilling coldness burst out from her eyes. At this moment, a dull and distant bell sound came. Dang, dang, dang. 3 consecutive sounds. Outside the hall, a servant shouted at the top of his voice, "The city lord has arrived." Almost at the same time, the main seat in front of the carefree palace flashed with golden light. A few silhouettes appeared in the flower wreath. Leng Yuma suddenly stood up straight and looked in the direction of the main seat, her hands clenched into fists. Mu Yen grabbed Leng Yuma's hand worriedly and also looked at the main seat. She still remembered what Leng Yuma said. Back then, her mother had an affair with the city lord of Fusang City. However, after personally witnessing the hellish scene of Fusang, who would believe that any normal woman would willingly come to such a damned place? Therefore, Leng Yuma's mother must have been persecuted. What would her mother have experienced all these years here? Is she still alive? The golden light on the main seat slowly dissipated. A tall and straight figure was revealed. It was a man who looked to be in his early 30s. His facial features were deep and handsome, and his temperament was graceful. A pair of strange deep purple eyes swept over, giving off a suffocating sense of oppression. The moment the man appeared, all the people in the carefree hall, men and women, knelt down in unison. He shouted, "Greetings, City Lord." Mu Yen and Leng Yuma naturally didn't want to kneel, but there seemed to be an invisible force coming from their bodies. Both of their bodies were firmly pressed down. Even his head was pressed tightly to the ground, unable to lift it. "Get up," the man said lightly. "Today is the 100-Flower Festival, there's no need for formalities." As soon as his voice fell, the invisible pressure disappeared in an instant. Mu Yen only felt her body relax and immediately stood up. Turning his gaze over once more, Zhang Xian realized that there were several beautiful young ladies standing around the man. They were dressed in luxurious clothes and had beautiful features. Chapter 2588. Kneel down and call me master. Each and every one of them gently and submissively stood by the city lord's side, revealing a fawning, admiring, or infatuated expression. Mu Yen was surprised to find that these women were not the least bit unwilling. The tips of their eyebrows and the corners of their eyes were full of love, without the slightest reluctance or fear. But there was still one woman who was different. She had a clear and beautiful appearance, wearing a fiery red dress, which made her ice skin and jade bones look even more peerless. However, his eyes were wooden and had completely lost focus. It was like a puppet with strings pulled. The moment she saw this woman, Mu Yan's eyes suddenly widened, and she subconsciously looked at Leng Yuma, because she found that this woman's appearance was 70 to 80% similar to fourth senior sister Leng Yuma. It's just that Leng Yuma was younger, more lively, and more flamboyant than the woman. One was like a blooming flower, while the other was a dried flower that had already withered and lost all its moisture, and had been made into a specimen. Mu Yan's heart thumped, and she tightened her grip on Leng Yuma. At this time, the man on the main seat impatiently pushed away the young girl who was rubbing against him. Instead, he stretched out his hand and said softly, "Rolin, come to my side." Hearing this, the woman walked to his side with a wooden face, and her whole body knelt at his feet. It was an extremely gentle posture, but it was also an extremely humiliating one. The man looked at her like this, but revealed a carefree smile. How obedient! "Let go of my mother." Leng Yuma, who was in the main hall, could no longer bear it, and her whole body pounced forward. However, before she could get close to the main seat, she was bounced back by an invisible force, and her body fell heavily to the ground. Fourth senior sister. Mu Yen quickly rushed over to help her up, took out a pill from the storage ring, and fed it to her. She had lost contact with the Tian Mo Qin, but as long as the bracelet did not attack, ordinary storage equipment could be used. Leng Yuma swallowed the pill, and suddenly sat up. Her red eyes stared at the woman who was crawling on the ground, and tears could no longer be held back. Mother, you should help me. I'm Umo, I'm your Xiaomo. Can you look back at me?" However, the woman seemed to have lost her soul. She just quietly crawled on the ground, as if she did not hear her shouts at all. The city lord of Fusang City suddenly stood up. His breathing quickened. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Leng Yuma, grabbing her chin. Alike, they're really alike. She looks exactly like the eldest daughter of the Yunling Lung family. As the man spoke, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and his eyes burned with a determined flame. Leng Yuma's chin was grabbed by his cold and sticky hands. She was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit. She raised her hand and slapped the man's face. "Let me go, you bastard! What did you do to my mother?" The man was caught off guard for a moment and was actually slapped hard on the face by Leng Yuma. The atmosphere in the carefree hall was dead silent all of a sudden. After the dead silence, there was a raging fire that was like boiling oil. What is this bitch doing? She actually dared to hit the city lord. This is outrageous. This was going against the heavens. Who was the one who brought the shrew in? Is the heart-locking buckle just for decoration? Dismember this woman's corpse. We must let all women know that obeying men is their bounden duty as women. Whoever dares to resist will die without a complete corpse. Chapter 2589. Kneel down and call me master. 3. Asking for votes. No, I should throw her into the 100 Flowers Kill, where she can neither live nor die. That is the best punishment for this kind of slut. Gu Faping walked forward with a pale face, bowed and said, City Lord Lu, please forgive me. These two women just put on the heart-locking buckle last night. The formation of the heart-locking buckle has not completely integrated with their bodies, so they are so bold. I will immediately take this slut away and deal with her. Willow Valley City, the City Lord of Fusang City. In name, he was the City Lord, but in reality, he controlled everything in Fusang City. He was a godlike existence. What he controlled was not only the fate of women, but even men could not resist him in the slightest. Hearing Gu Faping's trembling apology, the anger in Willow Valley City's eyes slowly faded. He looked at Ling Yuma with aggression and interest, as if he had seen a prey. You are Ruo Lin's daughter? The little girl from back then. I didn't expect that you have grown up to be even more interesting than Ruo Lin back then. He once again reached out and grabbed Ling Yuma's chin. This time, Ling Yuma wanted to resist again, but found that her whole body seemed to be bound by some kind of force, and she could not move at all. Willow Valley City saw her humiliated and resentful expression, and the smile on his face became more and more carefree. Just nice, the old one is too obedient now. She doesn't even have the slightest bit of interest. I have long been tired of playing with her. It's just that I can't find anyone more suitable than her. I didn't expect that you would actually deliver yourself to my door. Ha! Don't look at me like that. The more unruly and rebellious you are, the more I can't wait to train you. I want you to be as obedient as a dog and submit to my feet. When Willow Valley City was young, he went out to gain experience and met Ling Rollin, the eldest daughter of the Yunling Lung family. At that time, Ling Rollin was the same age as Ling Yuma. Dressed in white, she was valiant and magnificent. In an instant, she had captivated Willow Valley City's soul. He was from Fusang City, and what he wanted the most was to bring Ling Rollin back to the city and lock her up. He wanted her, who was as cold and arrogant as an immortal, to become his exclusive property and be obedient to him. However, how could he imprison the eldest daughter of the Yunling Lung clan? Ling Rollin mercilessly rejected his courtship and even thoroughly scolded Fusang City, a place where men were respected and women were slaves. At that time, Willow Guqing's heart was filled with hatred, but he also buried a deep obsession. After that, Willow Valley City searched for all kinds of women all over the cultivation continent, and every one of them bore a slight resemblance to Ling Rollin. However, none of them were Ling Rollin. It simply couldn't satisfy the desire in Willow Valley Cheng's heart. However, in the end, Ling Rollin was still dragged down from the high altar by him. She was tainted, destroyed, and became his plaything. Now, even her daughter was about to become his exclusive property. Ha, ha. Thinking up to here, Willow Guqing couldn't help but laugh heartily. If the high and mighty Yunling Lung clan knew that their proud and aloof eldest young miss and eldest young miss biological daughter were both obediently kneeling before me, Willow Guqing, I wonder what kind of expression they would have? Come, kneel down now and call me master. Ling Yuma's eyes were wide open, and the blue veins on her forehead were bulging. In her heart, she couldn't wait to tear the body of this beast who had defiled her mother into pieces. However, her body knelt down uncontrollably. Scattering flowers, Shui Ru of the 29 Enchantress of Medicine Alliance has appeared. Chapter 2590. Ling Yuma's lips were almost bitten, but she was still forced to open them and slowly spit out the two words that made her want to die. Swish! Just then, there was a sudden trembling sound. A swift and fierce sword light brushed past Willow Guqing's neck. With a crash, a table not far away was directly split in half by the sword energy. Once again, the carefree palace, fell into a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes were staring at the girl in white in disbelief. There was no sword in her hand. The things in the storage ring could be taken out, but Defying had already ordered that they could not take out any magical weapons that had a tendency to attack. However, without a sword in her hand, she sent out sword energy. She even almost hurt the Supreme City Lord of Fusang City. The girl's eyebrows were picturesque, her skin was white as snow, and her beautiful face was cold and indifferent, without a trace of fear or panic. She protected Leng Yuma behind her. On her slender wrist, the silver heart-locking buckle emitted a faint light. Boosh! The whole hall exploded. Even those numb women look at Mayan, revealing expressions of disbelief. What did this woman just do? Isn't there a heart-locking buckle on her hand? Why can she send out sword energy? Damn slut, she's a stunner. I originally wanted to trade her back and pamper her for a while. I didn't expect that as a lowly woman, she would actually try to hurt the city lord. Such a rebellious slut, she must not be allowed to live well. That's right, peel off her skin and burn her to death. Destroy her danton, cripple her limbs, and then starve her to death. In the carefree palace, the men who were just obsessed with Mayan all changed their faces at this time. Each of them was filled with righteous indignation and anger, wishing to tear Mayan to pieces immediately. For these men in Fusang City, women were just their possessions, their toys, and their pets. Their pets were beautiful, they would appreciate them, like them, and occasionally give them some benefits to taste. But they would never allow their pets to step on their heads. Willow Guqing touched a shallow scar on his chin, looking fiercely and coldly at the two women not far away. The white-clothed girl's beauty was enough to topple cities. Normally, Willow Valley City would still have the thought of taking her into his room, playing with her for a while, and then giving her to his subordinates. But now, in public, he'd been injured by a lowly woman who'd already put on a belt, and this caused Willow Guqing to only feel resentment and disgust in his heart. All-powerful women shouldn't exist. This went against the natural order of the world, so they had to be punished and destroyed. One of Willow Guqing's servants saw his expression and immediately shouted, "You dare to send such untrained sluts into the 100-flower banquet, and almost let them injure the city lord, what are you doing?" Defying was so scared that his face turned pale. He knelt on the ground with a thud. "Please forgive me, city lord. It's my fault." An ordinary person would be completely restrained after wearing the heart-locking buckle for a few hours. The two of them have been wearing it for a day and a night. I thought that they had completely lost the ability to resist. City Lord, please grant me the ability to atone for my sins. I will let their souls completely fuse with the heart-locking buckle. Willow Guqing sneered, raising his hand with a contemptuous expression. In a split second, Mayan felt a pressure that could topple mountains and overturn seas surging towards her. The tendons and veins of her whole body seemed to be bursting inch by inch. Her internal organs felt like they were on fire. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2591. Mu Yen spurted out a mouthful of blood. She could no longer hold on and fell to the ground. Before she lost consciousness, she heard Leng Yuma's exclamation. She also heard a distant and vague male voice. It seemed to be Qi Huang's voice, but it also seemed to be the voice of little martial uncle. 10 Extremes Formation. It turned out to be the Myriad Cave 10 Extremes Formation. Oh no, little martial sister. Leng Yuma rushed over and picked up Mu Yen. Seeing Mu Yan's pale face and bleeding lips, Leng Yuma glared at Willow Guqing. "What did you do to my junior sister?" Willow Guqing seemed to enjoy her look of extreme pain and hatred. He gently smiled and deliberately lowered his magnetic voice. "Little girl, do you know? If you didn't look like Ruo Lin, your fate would be 100 times more miserable than your junior sister. Well, don't make me angry anymore. Be a good girl and sit next to me." As soon as his voice fell, Leng Yuma felt the bracelet on her wrist heat up. All the strength in her body was suddenly drained. She was like a puppet, being led step by step in the direction of Willow Guqing. Willow Guqing laughed. "Look, it's good to be so obedient. All right, Don't stare here. Continue the 100-flower banquet and choose the woman you want. The male cultivators of Fusang City roared with laughter. Congratulations to the city lord for getting a beauty again. Then, they began to choose in the hall like picking pork. The one on the left in purple, come and dance for me. I want to see if your waist is soft. You come and let me see. I pay attention to women's skin the most. If every inch of your body is not perfect, I am not interested. Some women were trampled on the ground. Bitch, who are you showing this face to? Why don't you smile more charmingly for me? Willow Gucheng sometimes looked at the happy scene in the carefree hall, and sometimes looked at Ling Yuma, who was full of resentment but had to walk towards him. The smile on his face became more and more carefree. Soon, Ling Yuma walked in front of him. Willow Gucheng looked at her stubborn and beautiful face, then looked at the wooden lung rolling on the side, and a blazing flame ignited in his eyes. However, just as Willow Gucheng's hand was about to touch Ling Yuma, suddenly, a sharp pain came from his abdomen. Willow Gucheng let out a muffled groan and suddenly took a step back. He pressed his hand against his abdomen, and blood gushed out from his fingertips. He stared at Ling Yuma in disbelief. The woman with messy long hair and fiery red clothes revealed an ostentatious and wanton smile. Blood continued to flow from the corner of her mouth. This was the result of her desperate resistance against the control in her body. In her hand, there was a transparent crystal blade. Before Mu Yen fainted, she used her spiritual power to condense this crystal blade and gave it to her. With the condensation of the sword heart and the birth of the natal sword, Mu Yen could not only transform the sword qi into a sword, but also condense the sword qi into a physical form and transfer it to others. Everyone in Carefree Hall was dumbfounded and looked at this scene in shock. Willow Gucheng's face no longer had the complacency and arrogance of a strategist. His originally handsome face was now twisted into a ball, looking hideous and hideous. Bitch, I gave you chances again and again, and this is how you repay me. Sure enough, you're just like your mother, not shedding tears until you see the coffin. Good. Good. Then I'll let you have a good taste of what is called real hell. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2592. Lung Yuma slightly raises her chin and casually wipes the blood from the corner of her mouth. She looks up at Willow Gucheng, without the slightest fear in her eyes. However, the next moment, she hears Willow Gucheng wave his hand and coldly say, apart from the two from the Lung family, all the other women in today's 100-flower feast will be thrown into the 100-flower kill. Lung Yuma stares blankly. She doesn't know what 100-flower kill means. Hearing this sentence, the women in the hall, who were originally indifferent to being humiliated and trampled on, all show frightened expressions. Lung Yuma sees that Lan Xin, who was looking at them with ridicule mixed with pity, turns pale. She retreats and sits on the ground. The men show some regret. These are the most outstanding beauties in the city. It's a pity to send them to the 100-flower kill. It's not really a pity. It's precisely because they are all beauties, plus those fresh goods that have just been caught from outside, that this year's 100-flower kill will be the most exciting. Lung Yuma's heart sinks a little. What is 100-flower kill? Just as she is thinking, a whirlpool appears in the center of the 100-flower feast. That whirlpool looks like a teleportation array. From all directions, dozens of male cultivators wearing the clothes of the city guards rush out, grabbing the female cultivators in the hall and throwing them into the center of the whirlpool. City Lord, we sincerely love you. We don't want to participate in the 100-flower kill. When the guards came to grab the beautiful women around Willow Valley City, the women immediately screamed, City Lord, save us. We don't want to participate in the 100-flower kill, don't. However, Willow Gucheng doesn't even look at them. When the guards come to grab the unconscious Mu Yen, Lung Yuma recklessly rushes over, let go of little junior sister. However, here, under the control of the heart-locking buckle, she doesn't have the slightest power to resist. She can only watch with bloodshot eyes as they throw Mu Yen into the whirlpool. Haha. Willow Gucheng sits down again, takes a sip of wine, and chuckles. It's just the beginning. When you see the people you care about being tortured to death before your eyes, you'll know how stupid it is to resist me. Lung Yuma slowly closed her eyes and allowed the hot tears to flow down her cheeks. His hands were clenched into fists, his fingernails cutting into his palms bit by bit, causing blood to seep out. Mayan slowly opens her eyes and takes a deep breath. Suddenly, a scorching heat wave rushes into her mouth and nose, accompanied by coarse sand and dust. She couldn't help but cough violently. Wow, I didn't think that there would be 99 beauties participating in the 100 Blossom Kill this year. Furthermore, 099 turned out to be such a devastatingly beautiful woman. I really don't know how extravagant her master must be to be willing to send such a peerless beauty here. It seemed to be a man's voice, but it was sharp and thin, like the voice of a eunuch in the palace. Mu Yen forcibly withstands the weakness and discomfort of her body. She looks around and her complexion immediately changes. What he saw was a vast expanse of yellow sand and barren desert. The scorching sun above their heads shone down, and there seemed to be a layer of white mist lingering on the ground. He could feel a burning sensation on his exposed skin. Mu Yen discovered that she's not only in the desert, but also locked in a cage. Around her, there are nearly 100 cages densely packed together. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2593. 100 Flowers Kill, Game Start, 2. Asking for tickets. In each cage, there is a pale and beautiful woman. Some people are despairing and numb, some are panicking, and some are beating the cage angrily, shouting something loudly. And the sharp voice that just spoke came from the air. Mu Yen looked up and found a dark dwarf, only half the height of an ordinary woman, sitting on a flying carpet. While looking at them condescendingly, he said excitedly, "Gentlemen of Fusang City, I will now shine the Mirage Stone on the faces of the beauties one by one. You have to look carefully when the time comes, don't bet on the wrong treasure." This is 001. Oh my, 001 is not only a beauty, but also an old acquaintance. Isn't this the most favored concubine of Zhang Yuanwai's family? 002 looks really pitiful, and his voice must be very nice. 019, when the dark-skinned dwarf flew to the 19th cage, the girl in green slapped the cage fiercely and snorted, "Damn it, let me out. Do you know who I am? I am the direct disciple of the Dragon Tiger sect, Elder. If you dare to treat me like this, my master will never let you go." Hearing this, the dwarf giggled, "Entering my Fusang City, even if you used to be a princess, you have to crawl on the ground like a dog and beg for mercy. What's more, you also entered the 100 Flowers Kill? Do you want to inform your master? Then you have to be alive to get out of here." The green-clothed girl's face finally showed a frightened expression. "No. I was tricked. I want to go home. I don't want to stay in this damn place. Let me out. Let me out." The dwarf seemed to be accustomed to this situation. He grinned as he introduced the cages one by one, completely ignoring the cries and curses of the women in the cages. When he arrived in front of Mu Yen, the Mirage Stone in his hand was pointed at the girl's pale face. Even though the dwarf was dazzled by the 90 beauties just now, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He has presided over the 100 Flowers Kill for so many years. No, he had been in Fusang City for so many years and had seen so many beautiful women. However, there had never been a woman who could be as beautiful as the person in front of him. The dwarf wiped the saliva at the corner of his mouth after a long while and said with an ambiguous smile, "Everyone has seen it too. This young lady's looks are really rare in the world. Why don't you bet on her? If you survive in the end, you'll have a chance to play with such a—" The last word thing had not yet left his mouth. The white-clothed girl in the cage slowly raised her head. The dwarf's voice stopped abruptly. It was a pair of ridiculously beautiful peach blossom eyes. Coupled with her snow-white skin, she appeared bright and enchanting. However, the moment he saw her, the dwarf felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over his head. In this scorching desert, a bone-chilling hand tightly gripped his throat, making it hard for him to breathe. Mayan chuckles and lowers her eyes. She had once again returned to being a beautiful and fragile young girl. No one noticed that her slender fingers were gently stroking her own. There, the shape of a ring was faintly discernible, and there seemed to be light flowing around it. The corner of her mouth hooked up into a cold arc. But the dwarf flew into a rage out of humiliation. He suddenly flew backwards and said with a bit of resentment, "Hee hee, it seems that the beauty 099 still hasn't learned what it means to surrender, but it doesn't matter." Chapter 2594. The Hunting Game of the Hounds, 1. As he spoke, the dwarf became excited again. The more unruly the beauty is, the more moving the process of being trained in this 100 flowers kill. Don't you think so? The dwarf clapped his hands gently, sat cross-legged on the flying blanket, looked down at the iron cages below, and said with a smile, "Okay, the beauties have been introduced. Now it's time to explain the rules of 100 flowers kill." The rules of 100 flowers kill are very simple. 99 beauties plus 3 hounds, a total of 102 play pets, will kill each other in this desert for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, only 3 people will survive. The dwarf opened a hand and shook it gently in the air. I emphasize again, after 3 days and 3 nights, there can only be 3 living creatures in this slaughterhouse. Otherwise, all of you will end up 100 times more miserable than death, and will never be able to reincarnate. The dwarf enjoyed the frightened faces and tearful pleas of the women in the iron cages. The smile on his face became more and more brilliant, and he suddenly raised his voice. "I announce that the 100 flowers kill begins now. Open the iron cages." Today was the most lively day in the entire Fusang City, because the triennial 100 flowers kill event was held on this day. In the city, whether it was the wealthy nobles, the landlords, or the middle and low-level civilians, all of them were immersed in excitement and gambling. The 100 flowers killed event in Fusang City was actually carried out in the Mirage Phantom Array. Every blade of grass, every tree, every woman, every scene inside would be faithfully recorded by the Mirage Phantom Array. And the people in Fusang City only needed to use the inexpensive Mirage Stone to freely choose which play pets of the 100 flowers kill to see the scenes around them. As for the black-skinned dwarf, his name was Huang Wei. His role in the Mirage Phantom Array was to stir up the atmosphere and use the Mirage Stone to let people see more detailed scenes. The other point was to convey the decree of the Spectator Lord to everyone on the battlefield, adding to the fun of the entire battle royale. Yes, for the men in the city, the 100 flower kill was both a carnival and a gamble. Commoners had their own way of playing. They could bet on who would get the last 3 spots. The higher the odds of betting on the beauty or the hound, the greater the return one would get when they finally won. As for the young masters of the aristocratic families, they had many more ways to play. They could bet on who would survive in the end. He could also add chips to the hound, or beauty, that he fancied, or impose restrictions and punishments on them. In the Mirage Phantom Array, the beauties couldn't use their spiritual energy, and they didn't even have a weapon to defend themselves. On the contrary, the 3 men, even though they were prisoners on death row in Fusang City, were not afraid of them. However, they were allowed to use part of their spiritual power, and they were even allowed to carry weapons. It could be said that on the 100 flower kill battlefield, even if the number of beauties was dozens of times that of the hounds, they were still at a disadvantage. As for the audience outside, they could choose to add more points to the beauties they liked. As long as the actions of the beauties could please the audience master, the rich and powerful of Fusang City would give the beauties some small convenience. For example, in the desert where they were thirsty, hungry, and hot, they would give the women who couldn't use spiritual energy some food to fill their stomachs. Chapter 2595. The Hound's Hunting Game, 2. Another example would be giving them a weapon or a piece of defensive armor. Even if there is a spectator master who really likes a beauty and is willing to spend a lot of money to let her get spiritual power in a short time and recover part of her cultivation base, it is also possible. And such a beauty can usually live to the end, and even kill a town to get the final survival spot. There are people that the spectator masters like, and naturally there are people that they hate. For these beauties, they can also spend crystal stones to put a bounty on others' play pets, to kill them. Even if they can pay enough money, they can directly use the heart-locking buckle to punish these beauties. Make them powerless, make them in so much pain that they want to die, make them doomed eternally. And all these rules have only one purpose. That is to use the blood, tears, and fear of 99 women to please the insane wishes of these men in Fusang City. In the desert, Mu Yan is sitting in the shadow of a rock, her eyes narrowed, her fingers slowly rubbing the heart-locking buckle. Just at this moment, the sound of light footsteps could be heard. Mu Yan opens her eyes and sighs softly, "Elanxin, are you still not willing to let it go?" Her footsteps stop. Elanxin's figure slowly appears from behind the rock. Her pair of beautiful eyes glares at Mu Yan with hatred. "I've said it before, I hate you all. You're the ones who dragged me back to hell. I'll definitely make you all accompany me in death." Mu Yan sits up and looks at Elanxin, her brows lightly wrinkling. It has been more than 4 hours since the start of the 100 Flowers kill. Everyone's beauties are released in turn, looking for a place to hide. An hour after all the beauties set off, the 3 towns are allowed to move. In the entire desert, there are only a few ruins that can be considered as shelters. Everywhere else was just a stretch of yellow sand. The sun is scorching, the temperature is blazing, there is no food, and there is no water source. All the female cultivators' spiritual power is sealed, and they are no different from ordinary people. They will die of thirst and starvation in the desert, and they will be afraid of being hunted by the towns, living in constant fear. One can imagine what kind of suffering and pain they experience at every moment. It was the same for Elanxin. The shoes on her feet had been worn out a long time ago, and more than half of them were dyed red with blood. Her hair was disheveled, and her red lips, which were originally plump and supple, were already cracked and peeling, with traces of blood seeping out. Mu Yan slowly sat up and looked straight at Elan. She said, "The ones who dragged you into hell are not us, but the men in Fusang City who are worse than pigs and dogs. Instead of thinking about how to take revenge on us, why don't you think about how to escape from this hell? Break free from this hell?" Elanxin seemed to have heard the funniest joke. "Do you think I don't want to? It's been 3 years since I was tricked into Fusang City by Gufaping. There's not a moment where I don't want to break free. I don't even care if I die." Mu Yan glanced at the desert and said in a deep voice, "Just because there was no chance in the past doesn't mean there isn't now. Perhaps this 100-flower kill is your chance?" Elanxin revealed a mocking expression. "Do you think that as long as I commit suicide here, I will be completely free? Hehe, you are too naive. The bodies of the women who died in the 100-blossom kill are indeed dead, but their souls will be imprisoned in this desert for eternity. Day after day, year after year, day after day of torture, they will never be able to reincarnate until their souls scatter and scatter." Chapter 2596. The Hound's Hunting Game. 3. Mu Yan's Pupils Constrict. Never to be reincarnated. How deranged must the people of Fusang City be to think of such an inhumane method of torture? Elanxin opens her mouth and laughs in a hoarse voice. "Now you should know, right? Why are we, women who have long been numb to it, so desperate when we hear that we will be sent to 100-blossom kill? I have long given up the hope of liberation. Now, the only thing I want to do is to turn you and me into resentful spirits, forever sinking in this hell." As soon as her voice falls, Elanxin's eyes flash with an ominous glint. She raises the stone and pounces towards Mu Yan. However, she's clearly rushing towards Mu Yan. But when the stone is about to hit the girl's head, she suddenly feels that there's nothing under her feet, and her whole body falls to the ground. Enchantress suddenly straightens up, spits out the sand in her mouth, and looks at Mu Yen in bewilderment. Just now, she simply didn't see clearly how Mu Yen dodged her attack. Mu Yen stands under the scorching sun. Her skin is as white as snow, dazzling the eyes, pure and flawless. It's only now that Enchantress is shocked to find that she can't stand the heat in such a scorching desert, but the girl in front of her has skin of ice and bones of jade, without a drop of sweat, without a trace of embarrassment. Enchantress opens her mouth. Just then, a man's excited and playful voice suddenly rings out not far away. Wow, my luck is really good. I just randomly looked around, and I found two great beauties. Enchantress's whole body instantly tenses up. She no longer has the time to explore Mu Yan's abnormality, and turns to look in the direction of the voice in horror. Under the glaring sun, a tall and strong man with a face full of scars slowly walks towards them. The muscles on his face are constantly trembling, and the scars at the corners of his eyes are gently wriggling like centipedes. From those eyes, it's full of amazement, greed, and excitement. 99. The man licks his lips. We are all betting on who can be the first to hunt you, the number one beauty of 100 Blossom Kill. I didn't expect that I would be so lucky. Jie, respected masters of the audience? Say, what kind of show do you want to see? I, the Alpha Hound, will definitely satisfy you one by one. The male cultivators in the Carefree Hall who saw this scene all became excited. We've finally met. This audacious slut, it was time to let her taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. I'll increase the stakes now and let Hound A torture number 099. I'll raise the stakes too. This bitch actually dared to injure the city lord. If I don't make her suffer so much that she'll wish she was dead, it'll be hard to dispel the hatred in my heart. Very soon she will know how fortunate it is to be able to participate in the 100-flower feast. But even if she cries for mercy now, it's too late. The men in the Forget Worry Palace roared with laughter, while each and every one of them looked at the scene being broadcasted by the Mirage Lightstones with great interest. At this time, the wound on Willow Gucheng's abdomen had already healed, and there was no longer any resentment on his face. Instead, he revealed a sinister and excited smile as he looked at Leng Yuma. Leng Yuma and Leng Roland were sitting together. Leng Roland's eyes were still unfocused and her expression was dull. No matter how Leng Yuma called out to her, she did not respond at all. Chapter 2597. The Hunting Game of the Hounds 4. Asking for tickets, it's as if the soul has been taken away, leaving only the body. But from Willow Gucheng's point of view, the two women with similar appearances are sitting together. One is wooden and obedient, the other is lively and quick-witted. The two beauties sitting side by side, making his heart, which hasn't stirred for a long time, can't help but ripple. Willow Gucheng deeply looks at Leng Yuma and softens his voice. Do you want to plead for your junior sister? As long as you are willing to sit in my arms, I will give your junior sister a little more bargaining chip, so that she can struggle at death's door for a while. How about it? Leng Yuma quietly looks back at him, the corners of her mouth hooking up into a cold arc. Do you know who my junior sister is? Does she really think that fatally murderous god Junmayan is so easy to bully? Willow Gucheng didn't expect that she would still have this unruly expression even at death's door, and his face can't help but sink. Good. Since you won't shed tears until you see the coffin, then watch with your own eyes as your junior sister is tortured to the point that she's better off dead than alive. This city lord hopes that you won't kneel at my feet in a moment, crying and begging me to give her more bargaining chips. Hunting dog A, Chen Tai, never thought that he would actually receive an order from the city lord. Let him torment the beauty number 99. No, not only the city lord, but almost all the masters of the first-rate families in Fusang City have given him more bargaining chips. Chen Tai takes out the magic treasures from the heart-locking buckle, torture devices. These are all rewarded to him by the city lord and the spectators. When Chen Tai takes out a flying sword, his hands are shaking and his eyes are full of excitement and desire. because he knows that as long as he can perform well today, he can make the city lord and the spectators satisfied. Not only can he get out alive, he can even wash away all his sins and soar to success again. And his only chance is to torture and humiliate this beautiful girl in front of him, who doesn't seem like a mortal. Chen Tai holds the flying sword and walks towards Mayan step by step. Enchantress has fallen to the ground at this time, her face pale and her whole body weak. Even if she just wanted Mayan to die, wanted her to go to hell. At this moment, seeing Chen Tai approaching the delicate girl step by step, a sense of desolation arose in his heart. This girl with the surname June was so arrogant and confident when she spoke. It seemed that nothing in this world could stump her. But wasn't he the same in the past? Soon, she would know how cheap and worthless pride and confidence were in Fusang City. However, in the next moment, Enchantress's eyes suddenly widened, and she revealed an expression of disbelief. Under the scorching sun of the desert, the man's shrill screams pierced through the clouds. The white-clothed girl stepped on the badly mutilated man. Her long hair was like a waterfall, fluttering lightly in the wind. She was as beautiful as a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. However, he was also as ferocious as a devil that had just crawled out of hell. "This is impossible!" Huang Wei screamed out in midair. The mirage light stone in his hand immediately fell to the ground. Mayan raises her head. It's unclear whether she's facing the dwarf Huang Wei or the people outside the mirage phantom array. She raises a cold and disdainful smile. "Fusang City's trash, wash your necks and wait obediently. Your doomsday is coming soon." In the worry-free hall, Willow Gucheng suddenly stands up, his eyes firmly staring at the image played by the mirage light stone. His eyes are filled with shock, anger, and astonishment. How could this be? Isn't this woman wearing a locking buckle? Suppress your desires first. The suppression in the front is over, and the pleasure of abusing the dregs in the back is about to arrive. My dear friends, please be a little more patient. Chapter 2598. I refuse to accept this. What can you do to me? 1. Goof vaping, did you give her a fake heart-locking buckle? What are you trying to do? Goof vaping's voice was almost screaming as he shook his head desperately. No, impossible. That heart-locking buckle is of the highest grade. Even an out-of-body stage cultivator can't resist it. How could she? Arrogant. Too arrogant. Isn't she just a woman? How dare she say that our doomsday is here? I'm going to use all my chips to punish her. I want to see how long she can be so arrogant under the torture of the heart-locking buckle. That's not right. All the women have their spiritual power sealed. How can she still use it? Willow Gucheng suddenly said in a low voice, she's not using spiritual power, but Xian Qi, which is much weaker than spiritual power. Xian Qi? How is that possible? It wasn't that people on the cultivation continent didn't know about Xian Qi, but that no one cared about it at all. Because in the eyes of cultivators, the so-called ancient warriors were too weak. They were so weak that they could crush them with a finger. If 099 was using Xian Qi, then how could Lai Go, who had a flying sword and could use spiritual power, be defeated by him so easily? Willow Gucheng's face was gloomy. He gritted his teeth and said, "This is feedback from the 10-terminal formation." All the male cultivators present sucked in a breath of cold air. If it was feedback from the 10-terminal formation, it couldn't be wrong. In other words, this girl in white defeated a golden core cultivator with Xian Qi when she couldn't use spiritual power. A sudden laughter came from the side. Willow Gucheng looked over with a livid face. He saw Leng Yuma looking at him with a face full of mockery, then looking at all the men present. No, to say that they were men was an insult to men. These are all fucking crazy, trash who are worse than pigs and dogs. The corner of her mouth slowly curled up. Even though all the spiritual power in her body was sealed, she still exuded a chilling aura. However, his body exuded a terrifying aura. All of you trash, how does it feel to be counterattacked and killed by the slut that you all call a perfect thing? But don't be anxious. This is just the beginning, cough cough. Before he finished speaking, Lung Yuma spat out a mouthful of blood and coughed violently. Willow Gucheng fiercely glared at her, his face twisted with anger. Lung Yuma felt a sharp pain in her chest, but the smile on her face became even more carefree. She did not even have the slightest hint of fear or retreat. Willow Gucheng fiercely flicked his sleeves and screamed towards the Mirage Stone. Huang Wei, make that slut 099 immediately kneel on the ground and beg for mercy, otherwise I will use the raging flames burning body punishment on her. In the desert. Huang Wei recovered from his shock when he heard Willow Valley Cheng's voice. He immediately shouted, "Number 099, release Hound A immediately. Kneel on the ground and beg for mercy. Otherwise, the 10 Extremes formation will inflict the punishment of burning your body." The only response he got was a smile on the girl's lips and a pair of clear and bottomless peach blossom eyes. There was also a flash of sword light. Huang Wei's pupils abruptly constricted as he stared at the A-Hound Shintai's head that had rolled to the side. His eyelids twitched violently. Mu Yen met Huang Wei's frightened eyes and said unhurriedly, "What did you just say?" "Crazy, you're crazy. Do you know how terrible the raging flames burning body punishment is?" As soon as she said that, a ray of light fell from the sky and fell on Mu Yen. The next moment, the girl's pale complexion flushed abnormally. Chapter 2599. I refuse to accept this. What can you do to me? 2. The burning pain that comes from all over her body makes her tremble fiercely. Her rosy lips are instantly dehydrated and cracked. Ha! Huang Wei laughs. Now do you know what's called raging flames burn? The 100 Flowers kill has been held for so many times, and there has never been a person who could endure it. This is the result of a lowly woman like you resisting. Yi Lanxin couldn't help but turn her face away, biting her lips. Blood oozes from her lips, but she doesn't feel it. The raging flames burn doesn't affect the cultivator's body, but directly affects the soul. This kind of pain doesn't show on the surface, and it doesn't destroy the girl's perfect appearance. But that kind of pain is 100 times, 1,000 times more intense than just the flesh being burned. The stubborn and unruly girl finally couldn't bear it, bending one of her knees and slowly kneeling down. Sparkling and translucent sweat rolls down from her face, dripping onto the gravel like rain, and is quickly evaporated by the hot air. Huang Wei looks at this scene, feeling more and more carefree. He controls the flying carpet to move forward, admiring her painful expression while revealing a sinister and complacent smile. 099, I've already warned you that the pain of the raging flames burn isn't something you can endure, but you've overestimated yourself. Huang Wei hasn't finished speaking when he suddenly feels a suffocating pain from his neck. A slender, but sweat-soaked hand firmly clasps his throat, making him unable to breathe and unable to escape. The girl's hoarse voice reaches his ears, but it's mocking. "I've been waiting for you for a long time." Huang Wei looks at her with eyes filled with horror, his voice trembling so much that it's almost impossible to speak. You, what are you doing?" "I'm the host of the 100 Flowers Kill. All the masters are watching this scene from the Mirage Stone. You dare to lay your hands on me, they won't let you off." Mayan chuckles, sweat trickling down from her forehead. Her lips tremble from time to time because of the pain. However, she didn't seem to care about all of this at all. She continued to speak in a hoarse voice. "From the moment I entered this desert, I realized that on this so-called 100 Blossom Kill stage, I can't use my spiritual energy, and I'll be punished by the masters in the audience you mentioned. But here I'm free." Mayan's gaze slowly shifted towards the Mirage Stone on the ground. The ridicule in her eyes was unknown whether it was directed towards Huang Wei or towards the person watching from the other end of the Mirage Stone. "The heart-locking buckle's control over me can only follow the rules of the 100 Blossom Kill. As long as it is within the scope of the rules, even if I kill all the hounds, kill you, the host, and destroy this desert, the male cultivators of Fusang City will not be able to do anything to me, right?" Huang Wei's pupils constricted. Enchantress, who was standing to the side, suddenly sat up straight. Inside the worry-free hall, Willow Guqing and the other male cultivators were so shocked that they directly dropped the cups in their hands. Mayan chuckles, "It seems that I guessed right? You? Are you kidding me?" Huang Wei stuttered and shouted, "In Fusang City, no disobedient woman can survive." Meeting Mayan's mocking gaze, his voice came to an abrupt halt. The corners of his mouth kept twitching twice, only then did he put on a strong front, but he was weak at heart. So what? Do you dare to kill me? Do you dare to defy the masters in the audience? You'll eventually have to come out from the 100-blossom kill. At that time, have you thought about your own fate? Chapter 2600. The curve of Mayan's mouth deepens, and the hand clasping Huang Wei's neck slowly tightens. You say, "Do I dare?" Just then, there's a flash of light and shadow in the sky. "Slut, you dare?" An earth-shattering roar comes from the distant horizon. Mayan looks up and sees Willow Guqing's figure appearing in the sky. Enchantress stumbles and falls to the ground, her face full of fear. And she's not the only one with this kind of expression, but everyone in the 100 Flowers kill, except for Mayan. Because Willow Guqing's figure is too huge, blotting out the sky and covering the sun, like a Buddha high above. He can casually stretch out a finger and crush them to death. His voice is also rumbling, with a despotic power that people can't resist. 099. Do you know what the crime is in Fusang City to disobey my orders? You will be cut into pieces, never to be reincarnated. In Fusang City, the male cultivators who see this scene through the mirage stone all let out a cheer, shouting, "Long live the city lord." However, the next moment, they see in the image that slender and thin girl with a face as pale as snow, smiling once again. The hand holding Huang Wei loosens, and the dark and thin dwarf falls to the ground. He just breathes a sigh of relief. He feels a flash of cold light, and a head rolls down from his neck. The girl's deep, pitch-black eyes lit up with a radiance that was as bright as the stars. A clear and melodious voice, like a decadent sound of nature. "Ah, I have now disobeyed your orders. What can you do to me?" In the sky, Willow Guqing's face stiffens, his face filled with disbelief, anger, and astonishment. This is followed by a hysterical, monstrous rage. "Slut, you dare. You dare. I will tear you to pieces." Willow Guqing has completely lost his usual calm, and recklessly pounces towards Mayan. An earth-shattering aura rolled over. However, the next moment, spiritual power surges, and a vortex appears in the sky, directly swallowing the flustered and exasperated Willow Guqing. Mayan sneers. Sure enough, no one is allowed to destroy the 100 Flowers kill? As soon as her voice falls, her complexion flushes. His knees buckled, and he knelt on the ground. Are you okay?" Enchantress couldn't help but cry out in alarm. She looked at her with a complicated expression, then looked at Huang Wei who had been beheaded. She bit her lip. "What's the point of doing all this? If you resist like this, the punishment that those men will inflict on you will only become heavier and heavier, more and more insane. Your resistance, other than bringing hellish torture, has no other use. Was the torture really that painful to you?" Mayan slowly crawls up from the ground, wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth and pushing aside her messy, sweaty hair. His peach blossom eyes that were as deep as the sea looked at Enchantress without blinking, and he said word by word, "Compared with being treated as a mountain by these men, compared with being trampled on by others, compared with the despair of begging for death, can you really not bear this pain? Enchantress, you aren't even afraid of death. Are you really afraid of this superficial torture that can't deprive you of your freedom or destroy your body?" Enchantress stares blankly at Mayan in a daze. Mayan smiles absent-mindedly and says softly, "I have also tasted the most extreme suffering in this world." Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2601. I refuse to accept it. What can you do to me? 4. asking for votes. It's the bone-piercing pain of having one's own flesh and blood stripped from one's body. It's the wailing of despair that even one's soul wishes to tear apart. Compared with that kind of pain, all the sufferings become trivial and ordinary, and all the torments can be endured. So, in this life, she endured the Tian Emochin's master selection that no one could succeed in for thousands of years. She endured the heavenly punishment. Every day, she tempered her body in the blood-slaughtering sword array of tens of thousands of sword cheese. She also endured the heart-rending and lung-splitting pain of her flesh and blood being melted and reshaped. However, she endured all of this because she no longer wants to experience the heartbreak of losing her true love again. Compared with what she experienced in her past and present life, what does this insignificant punishment in the 100 Blossom Massacre count as? Enchantress's lips tremble slightly, her hands tightly clenched into fists. After a long time, she hisses, Even if we can bear this pain, so what? The 100 Blossom Massacre will eventually end, and we will return to the Devil's Claws all the same. Mayan slowly walks towards her, stopping at an arm's length away from her, and gazes deeply into her eyes. Enchantress, I'm very sorry, it was our carelessness that let you fall back into the Devil's Claws. Are you willing to believe me this once? I will take you out of Fusang City, alive, and in good condition. Enchantress pulls up the corners of her mouth, seemingly wanting to laugh. Yes, this is a ridiculous joke. How many outstanding women entered Fusang City, thinking that they could escape? Among them, there was no lack of leaving aperture stage experts. However, all of them, without exception, suffered a crushing defeat in this Fusang City, becoming a man's puppet. The young girl in front of her looks so young, and her cultivation is only a little higher than her own. On what basis does she say that she will take her out alive? Enchantress really laughs out loud. Her laughter is hoarse and rough. She laughs mockingly, but tears roll down her eyes. Can I really still get out of this damn place? She raises her tearful eyes, hugging the last glimmer of hope, and looks at Mayan. Can you really take me out? The woman's scarred body trembled violently. She didn't know if it was because of fear, hope, or the punishment that those beasts had inflicted on her. Mayan suddenly stretches out her hand and abruptly pulls Enchantress's frail body into her embrace. Gritting his teeth, he said, Remember, we're not running away. We're going to flatten this place and swagger our way out. Very soon, I will make this disgusting place disappear from this world forever. The entire Fusang City was in an uproar because of a woman. There had never been such a change in the 100-flower kill. In the streets and alleys of Fusang City, men could be heard cursing everywhere. Why isn't that bitch dead yet? A lowly woman actually dares to kill men, and 2 in a row. This is going against the heavens, really going against the heavens. What about Hound B and C? Where you all dilly-dallying? Why don't you chop this vicious woman into pieces? There were also men who ferociously beat their wives and concubines at home. He roared again and again, Why are you staring at that bitch? Do you want to resist like her? Don't dream. Have you forgotten how you knelt in front of me like dogs, begging me to dote on you and pity you? Chapter 2602. All of you remember this. Women are born to obey men and serve men. A vicious woman like 099, when the 100 Blossom kill comes out, your fate will be more miserable than death. If you dare to have any thoughts that you shouldn't have, the next person sent to the 100 Blossom kill will be you. The women knelt on the ground, shrunk their shoulders, enduring the whipping and torture. Their faces were already numb and calm. But their eyes couldn't help but look at the image played by the Mirage Stone. She was a beautiful girl in a dress as white as snow. She had killed 2 men. Even the powerful city lord of Fusang City could not do anything to her. How long could she live? Could she really break free from the cage of Fusang City? In the worry-free palace, Willow Gucheng directly crushed the wine glass in his hand. His elegant and handsome face no longer had a trace of hypocritical gentleness, only hysterical madness remained. When he saw Leng Yuma's mocking smile, Willow Guqing suddenly jumped up, his right hand gathered spiritual power, and fiercely grabbed her body. When his authority was challenged, he no longer had the mood to play with women like a cat chasing a mouse. He now wanted Leng Roland's daughter to beg for mercy under him. He wanted to make that bitch in the 100 Blossom kill regret. However, his hand had not yet touched Leng Yuma. Suddenly, Leng Roland stepped forward, blocking in front of Leng Yuma. Poochie! Her fingers directly penetrated Leng Roland's shoulder blade, dripping with blood. Leng Roland seemed to feel no pain at all, quietly standing in front of Leng Yuma, not taking a step back, not giving in. Mother! Leng Yuma screamed and wanted to rush over. But her body was blocked by an invisible force. Her tears gushed out, her eyes staring at Leng Roland, but she didn't know whether it was joy or sorrow. Mother, you still remember me, you still remember Yuma, right? However, Leng Roland still stood there calmly, firmly protecting her daughter behind her, and did not give her the slightest response. After Willow Guqing penetrated Leng Roland's body, he was stunned at first, and then became even more angry. Even you dare to resist me? Leng Roland, haven't you learned your lesson yet? Good. Then I will waste you now. A terrifying spiritual power surged out from Willow Guqing's body. The entire Carefree Hall, and even the entire Fusang City, shook violently. City Lord, calm down. The cultivators in the worry-free palace were scared out of their wits. City Lord, your divine soul is connected to the heart of the formation of 1,000 caves. You mustn't get too excited. Yes, City Lord, aren't they just a few bitches? So what if she could strut around in the 100 Blossom kill? In the end, you still have to come out and become something in our hands. Moreover, the one she killed was only the alpha hound, which was the weakest among the 3 hounds. Furthermore, it had not unsealed all of its powers. The remaining 2 hounds are both at the original infant stage. Hound B is at the peak of the original infant stage. As long as we give them enough help, we will definitely be able to defeat that bitch. Willow Guqing's twisted expression eased up quite a bit when he heard everyone's words. Gritting his teeth, he looked at the screen projected by the Mirage Stone and sneered, 099, I want to see how long you can be so arrogant. Willow Guqing and the male cultivators in the worry-free palace had a beautiful dream, but soon, reality slapped them hard in the face. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2603. After killing the A-Hound and Huang Wei, Mu Yan takes Yi Lanxin to a ruin. As soon as they enter the ruins, they hear a woman's heart-wrenching screams and a man's insolent laughter. What? You can be touched by that dog Yunbua, but I can't? In Fusang City, you can only be a man's plaything. You bitch, why are you pretending to be a saint? Let me go, let me go. If you dare to touch me, Brother Yunbua will not let you go. Haha, I am playing with Yunbua's woman. Scream, the louder you scream, the more excited I am. Brother Yunbua, help, get lost. Bastard, get lost. Mu Yan kicks the door open and swaggers in. The scene in the ruins makes her face completely gloomy. Lying on the ground, her clothes in a mess and her face full of tears, is a young and beautiful girl. Mu Yan recognizes her. Before the 100 Blossom kill began, she was locked in cage 008. Unlike other girls, she was neither numb, desperate, angry, or afraid. Instead, she was carefully observing the surroundings. Although there was panic and fear, she did not give up hope and was full of vitality. Mu Yan even saw her reach out to help a fallen woman while she was escaping. She's a kind and adorable girl, so much so that Mu Yan only needs to glance at her once to remember her. The man turns to look at her unhappily because he is interrupted. When his line of sight falls on Mayan, his breathing quickens and his eyes suddenly widen. 099. Haha, it's really wearing out iron shoes in fruitless search, but finding it by chance without even looking for it. He licks his lips, his eyes are full of greed, and his palms are shining. The next moment, a strong protective armor is on his body, and a silver 8th grade storm hammer is held in his hand. The result of a fully armed nascent soul stage cultivator against a weak woman who was in pain and had no weapon at all seemed obvious. 008 pulled his clothes together and sat up. With a sobbing tone, he said, "Miss, don't worry about me. Let's go. He's Hound C, and he's very strong. We're no match for him here." As she speaks, the little girl shakes her shoulders and cries. She was really scared, but compared to being scared, she didn't want to implicate this beautiful big sister. Mayan indifferently says, "Enchantress, take her out. The next scene is too bloody, it's not good for the young lady to see it." Enchantress nodded and gently helped 008 up. 008 was at a loss and couldn't help but worry. "Little sister, she. Enchantress firmly dragged the little girl out of the house. Slowly biting her cracked and pale lips, she resolutely said, "Don't worry, she can handle it." If they could not even deal with a hunting dog, how could she lead them out of Fusang City? 008 blinked and frowned. She wanted to say something else. Hound C's scream came from the room. "How is that possible? Why do you have a sword? No, what is this? You can't use spiritual power, so how can you condense sword chi?" Immediately after, Mu Yan's cold voice. "Do you want to know? Go to the real hell and ask the King Yen Luo about it." "No. My armor. How could that be? No, I don't want to die. I don't want to die in the 100 Flowers Kill. Spare me, ah." Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2604. Amidst the ruins, the man's screams and hobbies ring out one after another, mournful and shrill. Hearing it, the little girl 008 couldn't help but shiver. She cautiously pokes out her little head, wanting to take a look. But she hears the sound of the door being opened, and a girl in snow-white clothes walks out, spotless. Behind her, there's a river of blood, and the third hound's corpse that has long been unrecognizable. 008 gulps, then looks at Mayan with a face full of worship and obsession. Just now, in the dark ruins, she was frightened and scared, and didn't see Mayan's appearance. At this time, the girl's devastatingly beautiful face comes into view, and 008 suddenly widens his eyes. June. God June. You fatally murderous God, June. Mayan is just about to say these words. The little girl suddenly realizes something, and firmly covers her mouth. She knows that everything that happened here will be seen and heard by those bastards in Fusang City. Are you really God June? I'm not dreaming, am I? Mayan glances at her and casually nods. The little girl has obviously just been abducted and sold to Fusang City, so it's not surprising that she would recognize her. 008 covers her mouth, but her eyes are wet, and she doesn't know where to put her hands and feet. "God June, I'm Guiyun, I really admire you. I'm a member of the devastating army." Guiyun's clothes are still disheveled, but she has completely forgotten her fear, and completely switched to fangirl mode. "God June, I was tricked here, and I'm really scared. But seeing you, I'm not worried at all." Humph, these bastards, they even dare to capture God June, they will definitely die miserably. Enchantress was dumbfounded as she listened to Guiyun's unceasing flattery without any trace of reverence. She looks at Mayan again, and her heart is very surprised, but there's also a little more desire to escape. Mayan helplessly strokes Guiyun's messy hair, and tugs at her torn clothes, interrupting her unceasing chatter. "All right, you should go and tidy up first. Otherwise, if others see it, they will think that we bullied you." Guiyun immediately blushed and lowered her head. However, at this moment, an angry roar was heard. "What did you do to Xiao Yun?" As he spoke, a wave of attacks surged over with the momentum of an avalanche. Mu Yan quickly pushes Guiyun and Enchantress to the side. With a wave of her slender and lustrous hand, a sparkling and translucent sword appeared in her palm, and she used it to block the attack. Boom! With a loud bang, sand and dust flew everywhere. The airflow surged, and killing intent filled the sky. Guiyun hurriedly shouted, "Brother Yunhua, don't do it. They are my saviors." Great God Jun, Brother Yuanbua is a good person. Please, please don't kill him. This roar caused both sides to stop moving. When the dust settled, Mu Yen could clearly see that the person who came was a tall, ordinary-looking man. The moment the man landed, he immediately rushed in front of Guiyun, anxiously looking at her. "Xiao Yun, are you okay?" Guiyun shook her head, then her nose turned sour, and she couldn't help but shed tears. "Brother Yunbua, I was almost defiled by the third hound. Fortunately, God Jun and the others rushed over to save me." Hearing this, the man's face instantly turned sinister, and his eyes burst with a strong murderous intent. "Where is that beast? I'm going to kill him." Bookmark for easier reading. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.